Illinois State Police saying anyone who possesses a banned firearm or firearm attachments are required to endorse an affidavit by January 1st, 2024, stating that any banned firearm or firearm attachments were possessed prior to the enactment of the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Good morning. I want to hear your response to that here on WMAY with Springfield's Morning News. You can call in at 217-629-7970. So that's the statement I received from the Illinois State Police on Friday when I initially asked whether or not individuals who purchased firearms during the injunction would be out of compliance with the stay that was in place, and whether or not they could get their firearms, as was the case from January 10th. There was a window for people to actually obtain those firearms and to be in compliance with the law. But when you had the Southern District of Illinois issue an injunction against the law, that meant the law could not be enforced. Then you had reports of gun stores seeing record sales. We even heard from the GAT Guns compliance officer, Nicole Govino, about what kinds of sales they saw come through. And it was obvious that there was a lot of interest in purchasing semi-automatic firearms.
So we are a very high volume firearm dealer. So we normally, run a pretty big business. Even with the ban, we were still, pretty busy. This was another level back to say COVID times where we had lines out the door, down the block, hundreds and hundreds of people. Firearms, I don't have a count yet. I would say probably close to, by the time they're disposed, it's probably about 500-600, maybe more.
500 or 600, maybe more, and that's just one gun store. I imagine that a lot of gun stores across the state saw similar types of numbers. And were you one of those that purchased a semi-automatic rifle, for instance, or a 30-round capacity magazine during that 6-day window of the injunction? I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here. Or you can email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. Some of the questions on the chat this morning, how is Illinois State Police going to ban those firearms purchased during that time after they were the ones who approved the FOID transaction in the first place? Similar question I got on Twitter is if someone bought a gun during Freedom Week, as they call it, how would ISP know? It is because the background check is run through ISP, and if so, how do they know what you bought? I thought that they only do a check on the person and don't even know the record of the type of weapon being purchased. And that may be true, but you got to think we have a law in Illinois that is on top of the federal firearms licensing scheme. And the state law requires a state license on top of the federal license. And that state license allows for regulators like Illinois State Police to go to a gun store and check recent sales. They have to keep those sales on hand, open for inspection for anybody who may go and buy a firearm. So I don't know if that helps explain exactly what's next here and how Illinois State Police could possibly track those sales. And a lot of people concerned that means there could be gun confiscations. So obviously there's a lot of questions that still remain. One person says that they watch the show every morning. I appreciate that. Thumbs up. One thing I haven't seen talked about is whether or not magazines or magazine attachments during the injunction being bought are being targeted as unlawful as well. Now, the statement that Illinois State Police provided does indicate firearms or firearms attachments, and those would be the attachments, for instance, like a extended magazine, as they say. Others asking how this impacts the temporary restraining orders that are in place for Attorney Thomas DeVore's clients, but also for the clients out of Macon County, where you have thousands of temporary restraining orders keeping individuals safe from enforcement of the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Now, those restraining orders, as the definition is, are temporary. They're temporary restraining orders, which when the Illinois Supreme Court takes up this case May 16th, and when they rule on it weeks after the fact, that could wash away some of these temporary restraining orders, which really begs the question as to what happens next. And I would go to the actual Protect Illinois Communities Act law, which the Illinois State Police say is indeed a measure that at the affidavit stage, when you have to file an affidavit with state police showing that you are in possession of banned weapons, it says that you have to say in an affidavit, an endorsed affidavit, that any banned firearm or firearm attachment was possessed prior to the enactment of the Protect Illinois Communities Act of January 10th, 2023. So that's where you're getting this kind of loophole of sorts of, the guns that were purchased between when the injunction was in place and the stay was put in place to reverse that injunction. State police say, in consultation with the Attorney General's office, those firearms, regardless of them being purchased during the injunction and having possession taken of those during the injunction, those are illegal, according to Illinois State Police. Now, this has spurred on all kinds of more possible lawsuits that could arise from this. And the big question is all this going to be sorted out either in the state courts or in the federal courts before we have that October 1st to January 1st window of having the requirement for you to register your firearms with state police. I've seen people say here on previous videos saying that any laws repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. Others saying that they'll transfer themselves out of state before they sell any firearms they legally purchased. Others saying it's time to move. And so on. So this obviously is something that I think has a lot of interest because there's 2.4 million FOID card holders in the state of Illinois, and some of you out there, potentially thousands of you out there, may have a firearm that Illinois State Police says is illegal because you purchased it during injunction week. Others calling it Freedom Week. Let's get your calls at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greggy. Illegal. Okay, you were totally correct when you say that banning of weapons leads to confiscation of weapons, and that's a historical fact. I want to see them try and take guns away from the rednecks down in southern Illinois. These people don't understand the breadth of Illinois at times. An illegal weapon is basically an automatic weapon like a Tommy gun or a shotgun having less than a 20-inch barrel. Those laws were passed during Prohibition because of the John Dillinger and them outgunned the cops. And if they really want to worry about something, if politicians want to worry about guns, with 50 caliber guns now, which I think are banned by the assault weapon thing, they now have computerized scopes, and that they can put on these 50 calibers that you can have guarantee first shot kill at over 1,000 meters. That gives our Secret Service nightmares every day because of they have a 600-meter scope of protection for the president, and the capabilities of the guns now have doubled. Sure. I'll shut up, but I can't comprehend them, why they would make a silly statement like this and just rile up the people unnecessarily. We got enough problems as it is.
Well, and just to give you a bit of the timeline of when I got this statement, I had initially Thursday morning, I had asked a state police contact via email whether or not they're enforcing the state's gun ban with the injunction in place. That was Thursday morning when I requested that statement. And I didn't get anything back Thursday morning. And then Thursday afternoon, you have the injunction being reversed with a stay. Then my question changed. So Friday morning, I requested a statement from Illinois State Police asking what the status is now that the stay's been in place for those who purchased firearms during that 6-day window. What was the status? And then I got that statement from Illinois State Police late afternoon on Friday that talked about how, people who purchased firearms in that 6-day window, if they took possession of those firearms, they have possession of those firearms. But they said that those firearms are illegal under the Protect Illinois Communities Act. So how exactly that's going to impact lawsuits moving forward, we shall see. Others just waiting for the U.S. Supreme Court to essentially rule on this, and others asking what the Illinois Sheriff's Association has to say about all of this. Obviously, there's a lot more twists and turns coming for this particular issue of the state's gun and magazine ban and how it's impacting gun owners across the state, especially with the legal wrangling that's been going on, with an injunction being in place, people going out and buying, the TROs that are in place, people going out and buying. Some are saying that the state police's statement doesn't impact the temporary restraining orders. But if you look at the law that the state police are referring to, they essentially are highlighting that the affidavit you have to file with state police for that registration scheme, it says you have to sign a legal affidavit stating that you did not have these weapons after January 10th, that you had these weapons before January 10th of 2023. So this very well could impact those who have the temporary restraining orders and went and purchased or exchanged money for guns, like gun stores, for instance. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions here, and I think it's got a lot of people really holding out for the U.S. Supreme Court to take some kind of action and provide a either preliminary injunction or a permanent injunction. But even with the legal wranglings that are going on back and forth, the merits of the issue in federal court have yet to really be dealt with. At the Southern District and the Northern District, they have dealt with some of those issues, but all of this possibly being consolidated with the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals from the Southern District and the Northern District cases being consolidated, that's going to advance forward at some points this week with filings of all the interested parties saying whether or not they agree that these need to be consolidated. And also the U.S. Supreme Court demanding that Naperville respond to law weapons and Robert Beavis's motion for a preliminary injunction against Naperville and the state ban. So we'll see all this fall into place here in the days and weeks ahead. We'll be reviewing all of it here and, of course, getting your reaction at 217-629-7970. Let's go ahead and get to another call here before we take a break. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg. You know, it seems they should have named this bill the Attack Illinois Communities Act. And so my question would be, who's going to protect the people from the government? And who they should be going after is the people causing all the mental illness in our young people and attacking the people from multiple angles, like the vaccine that's killing people.
Well, and listen, I mean, we can have that conversation at another time, but that's not part of this overall conversation. I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Got to take a break. It is Springfield's Morning News on WMAY.